Thank you, Hannah. The next item up is from our city clerk, a resolution adopting the City of Loveland Handbook for boards and commissions, and presenter is Hannah Hill. Take it away, Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor Marsh, City Council. My name is Hannah Hill. I'm the Deputy City Clerk in the City Clerk's office. Tonight, we are bringing you proposed updates to your City Council, your City Board and Commissions Handbook. Tonight, I have a pretty short agenda, so Mayor Marsh, if it's okay with you, I will ask that you hold questions to the end.
Okay.
We are here tonight to overview the purpose of these updates, why we're here. We're going to take a quick look at your boards and commissions. We're going to briefly look at the proposed changes, as well as what we are looking at as staff going forward into 2022 and 2023. So why are we here tonight? Councilor Olson pulled this item from the consent agenda last week, so I did want to note that we understand council may have other updates that aren't included, and we were very happy to hear those and listen to those concerns at the end of the presentation. Since your last Board or Commission handbook in 2019, there have been several council directives to update in the handbook, and there have also been several administrative updates that staff recognizes would be beneficial for your boards or commissions. This proposed update includes several technical and your council directives, and we do look forward to hearing what other updates council might have. So as you are well aware, there are 26 council, I keep saying council, and it's boards or commissions. So there are 26 boards or commissions that the city clerk's office provides oversight for, and we work with your city departments and your staff liaisons in providing those oversights. All 26 of those boards or commissions are governed by your city code, and the code does state that the city board or commission handbook explains all rules and sets forth guidelines. When there is a request for clarification or we need to understand how those boards or commissions are governed, we go to the handbook, and that is why we feel like the handbook is the best resource, and we want to make sure we're providing the most accurate and helpful information to your boards that we can. This is just a listing of all of your 26 boards or commissions. I'm not going to read through it because you all went through last week and read through and appointed yourselves to be the council liaisons to these boards or commissions. I think one thing that is important to note is that this is your listing of your city boards or commissions. This does not include, and the handbook does not address, your external committees like the I-25 Coalition, the Fire Rescue Authority, or the Housing Authority. This is just specifically for your city boards or commissions. So now we're going to look at our proposed changes. Some of the notable administrative changes are starting first off in our introduction, we corrected the order of the boards or commissions. Nothing changed. We just provided a little bit of clarification in the listing of the order. Throughout the handbook, there are also some grammatical updates that we provided, and then we provided some clarification, such as the posting location. Previously, the bulletin board outside of council chambers was the posting location, and in our virtual world, we're now posting online, and so we wanted to make that clear in the handbook that our posting location that council adopts in January of each year is online, and it's not the bulletin boards. So that was just one clarification that we provided. We also wanted to note that staff recommends reporting requirements for financial disclosures. Planning Commission members have already turned in financial disclosures, but staff feels that due to the nature of the Loveland Utilities Commission, those members should also fill out and turn in to the city clerk's office financial disclosures. Some other notable administrative updates. We wanted to address a question that staff gets asked frequently regarding board members meeting. They're similar to council, and you need to avoid an appearance of a meeting with 2 or more board or commission members, and staff gets asked that frequently, so we just wanted to make sure that it's spelled out. Yes, council is 3 or more, and the verbiage in the handbook does say 2 or more to avoid the appearance of a small gathering. And in the land of virtual meetings, we also wanted to address virtual or hybrid meetings for our board and commission members. Some of our more notable changes, the one that I'm really excited about would be the requirement of our boards and commissions to turn in work plans and annual reports. We feel that this would be a really beneficial way for council to see how your boards and commissions are all aligning with your citywide adopted strategic plan. Some of your boards and commissions already do this, so this might not be new to all of them, but we feel that in order for our program to be very cohesive, all of our boards and commissions should be able to turn in work plans and annual reports. Those will be turned into the city clerk's office, and we will take care of distributing them to council as needed. We would move on to our alternates with staff fills is a technical update. And so last summer, after our spring recruitment, staff really felt that there needed to be a little bit of clarification for our alternates. Several of your boards and commissions have one alternate, some have two alternates, some were appointed for a year term, and some were appointed for a term that matched the member appointed term. We felt that to better show transparency to the public and during our recruitment cycles to provide more clarification, that all of our 26 boards or commissions should have the same number of alternates and that they should be appointed for the same length of time. We did put together a little task force of our boards and commission staff liaisons to discuss this and to take this back to you as commission members. And we met with the city manager and his executive leadership team to discuss this. And the staff recommendation is for each board or commission to have no more than 2 alternates, and for those alternates to have a matching term length to the member appointment. So the only boards or commissions that will really see a difference are the board or commissions that have an alternate that used to be appointed for 1 year. Now they'll be appointed for a matching term length year for those members, so 2 years or 3 years, depending on your commission. Staff just really feels like this will show more transparency for the public, especially during our recruitment cycles. The other item for the alternates would be that we wanted to provide clarification for the board or commission member alternates and note that they are not able to vote during a meeting if an appointed member is not there. This does not reference city council on your appointed liaison seats for your voting committees. This is just for the board or commission member. And staff gets asked frequently if a appointed member misses a meeting or 2 meetings, if the alternate can step in and vote. And they are not able to, so we wanted to provide that clarification. I see a few questions on that, so I'm going to come back to it. Mm-hmm. We also wanted to note that the council has given us a couple different directives for adding verbiage into the handbook. One of those would be the political patronage language. Last year, council asked that we address political parties and note that our city boards and commissions are not affiliated with a party, and your political party does not determine your ability to be appointed to a board or commission. Council has also directed staff to send the mayor and council your adopted minutes, and we felt that because that is something that has historically been going on, it's kind of it's not a council policy, but it's one of your board or commission's policies, and we felt that it needed to be addressed in the handbook. So looking forward to 2022, some of you may remember the city manager's surveys that went out to our boards and commissions. This item was paused due to COVID, and the surveys were meant to gather input, provide feedback, and present to council any code changes or relevant updates to the boards or commissions. In 2022, we are going to be bringing this back, the city clerk's office and the city manager's office, so you and your boards or commissions will start seeing those surveys go out. We already have a couple of commissions that are very excited because they feel that their name needs to change to reflect their current work, or they may need to decrease members or increase members depending on their board or commission. So staff will start sending those surveys out in early 2022, and then we look forward to bringing those to council in presentations or different ways of communication the middle to end of 2022. And we see that any relevant code updates will be being presented to City Council the end of 2022 and going into 2023. I think that's all that I have. So Mayor Marsh, I am happy to accept questions and council comments.
Councilor Fogel, your light is on. I don't know if that's just left over.
Nope, I have a question. Would you roll back to the slide? Probably your first one, I think. There we go. Whoop, right there. Notable administrative updates. Madam Mayor, I have a question for our city attorney, if I could.
What is your question?
It's about open meeting laws for the state of Colorado.
All right. What is your question?
I'm not sure. That's why I want to talk to him a minute.
What do you?
My question is this consistent with Colorado open meeting laws?
Deputy City Attorney, do you feel that you can answer that question?
Madam Mayor, members of council, I believe I can answer that.
Okay, please do.
Councilmember Fogel, my understanding is under the open meetings law, the requirement is, which will create a notice requirement, is that 3 or more members of the government or the whatever the legislative body is, when 3 or more are present, that constitutes what's called a public meeting under the open meetings law, which would trigger notice requirements. However, if the city chose to be more restrictive and provide notice with a number at 2, the city could do so.
Thank you. Well, this city councilor does not choose to be more restrictive. In fact, I think it's absolutely sending the wrong message to the 200 people that sit on our boards and commissions for us to put restrictions on them that we don't have on ourselves. I would like to see this changed to avoid 3 or more that could be considered a meeting, because that's what the law actually says in the state of Colorado. Thank you, Vince.
Councilor Fogel, are you proposing amendment to the motion that will later be?
Yeah, but let's wait until everybody has something to say, and then I'll do it. That way we don't have 15 amendments.
All right, thank you. Councilor, I'm not sure who was next. I think it's Councilor McFall.
So, Hannah, what's the reason behind
Behind the updates?
behind 2?
Behind 2, I would have to defer to the legal department. My understanding of it is that 3 or more constitutes a public notice.
Right.
So we don't want to get to 3.
But why 2? We've limited. We're recommending we limit the boards and commissions to 2 or more. So if you get 2 commissioners decide to go have a beer, they can't do it. They can't go have a burger together. They can't do anything together. And I think it kind of goes to where Councilman Fogel is going on this, is that we're restricting them in a way that we're not restricted.
Yeah, I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Deputy City Attorney, do you have any input in that? Were you part of the changes, formulating the changes?
Madam Mayor, I was not directly involved in this particular change. However, if the city chooses to be more restrictive here, they absolutely can. That could include reducing the risk or the propensity that there is an open meetings violation by having such a strict rule. However, it is simply not required. And should the council choose to amend that rule, they can.
Is it a percentage of the number of people on a board? So say you had a board of 12, is it still 2 or 3, or does it change with the number of people on a commission or board?
Madam Mayor, it's always 3 under the Colorado
Okay,
meetings law.
thank you. Councilor McFall.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why we're being more restrictive. Was there something that caused this?
No, I don't believe so. I believe, like I said, I think it was just my intention. I think our intention was to not get to that 3, but I do understand your point. I think it's very valid, and if council would like to change it to 3, or we can just say, I guess staff recommendation would be to change to 3 or more to avoid appearance of meetings. I think our goal was to have that number in there. That way it wasn't what constitutes small, because that would just need more clarification.
No, I get that. I'm not happy with the perception it sends.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Councilor Olson.
Yeah, thank you. I pulled this because it's been a number of years since this has been reviewed, and over time, at least the 4 years I've been involved, there's some things that have surfaced that have caused me to desire to make some changes. The first one, a little history lesson. Counselor Fogel is the primary for the Downtown Development Authority, and I'm the alternate. And I've attended probably as many meetings as Counselor Fogel has. He was absent one time. Alicia was the attorney present. And in his, it's a voting position, and in his absence, I was intending to vote. And Alicia said, because the Downtown Development Authority is a city board, I could not vote on that. So I brought that to council, and council says, well, that's silly. Let's allow councilors to vote where the option is available. So apparently, and I forget what document Delynn said it was in, but there is a document that's contained in. But since on page 9, the Downtown Development Authority is listed as a city board and commission, I feel it appropriate that also be a statement in there that the alternate council liaison has full rights, including voting when applicable, privileges and responsibilities as a primary council liaison when when alternate council liaison is filling in for the primary council liaison. Council liaison duties are addressed in the handbook, and I feel this statement should be in there. So that's one. Secondly, I feel that in some of the boards and commissions, the reaction sometimes of council doesn't accept the recommendations of the board and commission. There's a little annoyance. I'd like there to be a clear statement that boards and commissioners, there's people that serve on boards and commissions serve at the pleasure of council. Council may accept, reject, or modify recommendations. And I'd like that just to be a clear statement in the handbook. Next, I feel that there should be a statement that members of board and commissions are to be respectful of council and staff while serving on the board and commission. Disrespectful or derogatory comments on a public forum are not considered consistent with membership on a board and commission and may result in the removal or rejection for appointment to a board and commission. A few years ago, the chair of the Democratic Party, who was serving on one of our commissions, referred to the council as 4 old white guys and referred to me as the grand wizard of the council. I personally found it disrespectful, derogatory, racist, and discriminatory. Well, everybody has freedom of speech. That doesn't mean we have to allow members who behave in such a manner to be a member of our board and commission. Next, the manual requires that the chair of the board and commission fill out attendance reports and turn those over to the city clerk. To my knowledge, every board and commission has a staff liaison. Seems to me that should be a staff liaison responsibility instead of tying up their staff, they're here, so it seems like they could complete that duty. And then it states in there, and I forget to write down the page number, applications for a board commission can't be considered after closing date of the announcement. I don't see why. Sometimes pickings are pretty slim, and I would like it to read that at the discretion of the interviewing members, which is the staff liaison, the council liaison, and the chair of the commission, if they decide that they'd like to consider the applications, that they'd be allowed to do so. They're grown-ups. They should be able to do that. And then finally, on page 11, it says no employee shall serve on a board or commission appointed by council. The subject, Alita, comes to mind. I don't know if that's one of those that falls under that, but we have presently only a staff member assigned to that, I think, or has been for a while. So,
I'm on that one.
well, anyway, we have a staff member on it. Does that violate our board and commission handbook?
City manager, do you have a response to that?
Yes, Madam Mayor. One, I'd say that on the LEDA board is not one of the boards that's in this board and commission covered. It's a separate appointment. It has its own code sections that determine the membership of the board. Mm-hmm. So we would have to investigate that because right now, Council Member Foley was elected to that group, as well as we still have our staff liaison that's there by resolution at this point. So we have two people there now representing LEDA.
And there might be a provision within the IGA that specifies that the mayor pro temp is supposed to be the representative. So we probably should research that.
Actually, well, I don't want to practice law, but it
Give us
says
your
that
opinion.
unless you have specified other members.
His appointment.
Because some people have appointed them, nobody has appointed something, so the mayor pro tem is set in. Our council has specifically made a resolution appointing a member of LEDA that would be voting in a resolution, and that was the staff liaison. Now we need to work that out with Councilor Foley too, because again, you only have one vote, so we have to figure out who's going to be the vote, and we still have to work that out.
All right, and,
So those are my concerns and recommendations.
all right, thank you. Good input. Counselor Foley?
Yeah, on that rule of two, has there been any violations that you know of?
Nobody's paying any attention to it.
I don't know of violations. It is a question that staff gets asked frequently. Can we meet, or is this permissible? Or we just want to provide clarification in an effort for being transparent that your appointed members should avoid the appearance of meeting. So I don't know of any violations, no.
Okay.
All right, Counselor Sampson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my first question would be, I don't know, for the city attorney or for the city manager, on the two or more rule, is violating the Sunshine Law legal liability? And are board and commission members covered by CIRSA the way we are?
Okay, Deputy City Attorney, you heard the question?
Yes, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Sampson, to your first question, would there be a violation if there were three more of the open meetings law? The answer to that question is yes. Would there be exposure to the city as far as legal liability? The answer to that question is yes. Second part, your question was, would CIRSA provide coverage to a board member or to the board or to the city generally, representatives of the city in a suit regarding a violation of the open meetings law? The answer to that question is yes.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you. So we're looking at the potential, I mean, this seems to me that avoiding two or more would be heading it off at the pass, potentially, that we wouldn't have to follow 200 people, whether or not they're violating this law. So that was my question, my reason for asking that question. To speak to what another counselor had said, an alternate council liaison has the right to vote in the absence of the primary. So that's not permitted at this time, but it seemed to me, Hannah, that what you were putting in here was actually about the alternates. So, and maybe this was what that counselor was saying, that these are different, but that the alternates on the board are actually not allowed to, like the alternate board members, that wasn't in reference to the council liaisons.
Correct. That's not in reference to you as a council liaison being appointed to a voting board for an external committee like the I-25 Coalition or Housing Authority. And I don't remember our list of what you guys have voting rights to. This alternate language in the proposed update is for the alternates that you appoint as citizen members to your boards or commissions. If they are an alternate attending, they are not allowed to vote.
Right. And we would have, every board is allowed to have two alternates, and that would get messy, like flip a coin, who votes, how often. Yeah, so, okay, I support that then. And then I agree with the statement about the boards and commissions serving at the pleasure of council. As much of a fantasy land as it might be to live in, that we could control what people say on social media about us, I certainly would like to control what people say about me on social media, but that's not something that I think we can do. We do have to, I think, respect the First Amendment rights. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, but I would not be in support of a statement that would violate someone's First Amendment rights. We have the chair of the Larimer Republican Party as the chair of the Planning Commission, who has made statements that could be considered derogatory in nature against the mayor, against myself, against other members of council. Perhaps those statements that were made that were derogatory in nature toward you were offensive. There have been things that have happened to us that were offensive. those people still serve on our boards. They have a First Amendment right to speak their minds, especially in a public forum such as social media. So I think that would be lovely if we could limit derogatory statements, but it would also probably need to reach this board, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So I wouldn't support anything about that. I think it's probably a dreamland to try and take that out or to address that. And other than that, I think that was it for my statements. And I think the reporting requirements. So why did you choose the Loveland Utility Commission and not also add like the construction board or other like potentially policy-making boards or, boards that make regulation
I
types?
think our city manager wishes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
to
should have
weigh- No,
addressed that
no,
too.
I
was
think
asking
our
Hannah.
city manager wants to address this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilor, for that question. The reason that we're recommending the Loveland Utilities Commission is that they are the only board that has the ability to approve contracts. They also set our raw water price as a board. And so their authorities are greater than the normal board or commission. And so the idea of them setting a water price and maybe they own shares in an irrigation ditch
Right.
would be a good thing to know for conflicts of interest. Or if they're approving a contract and they have an interest or a family member that works for a construction company, it would be good to know that kind of information as a potential conflict of interest. And also because they're working on raw water and portfolios and all those kind of things as part of the work they do and studies that they look at, the thinking was that would be a commission because of their approval of contracts that should have some additional reporting requirements on it.
Okay, so those are the only two then that make those kinds of decisions. So even talking about the other, like the voting, like the DDA that Councilor Olson was talking about, those still have to come before us, so it's not the same concern.
Right. I mean, their authority is not going to let the city attorney also talk on that one specifically for the DDA because I'm not exactly sure all of their authorities. But because they're a council member, they've already filled out a.
No, I meant the board members, because this is about the board members, not the council
Right,
members.
right.
The commission members. So these are the only ones that we would think that their decisions could be potential conflict of interest. Otherwise, everything comes before us and we make the final decision on it. Okay,
The DDA, when they make recommendations on financing
To
and all
us.
that, you see that as the final authority.
right, okay. All right, that was my question on that. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Deputy City Attorney, so maybe clarifications should be added as well that you can get together socially. We're not saying that people on boards and commissions can't be friends and can't be social. They just can't discuss their board member, commission member duties. Would that be a correct statement?
Madam Mayor, so there's already a provision that exists in Colorado law under the open meetings law that basically exempts, we call it the Christmas party exemption, right? If you go into a Christmas party, you're not anticipating any public business, it doesn't have to be noticed. The challenge is, of course, drafting language that would be enforceable and effective because, really it's kind of on the honor system.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, I think that's just the reality of the law. But, I mean, to the extent that the council would like us to add language to that effect, the council may make an amendment and we can add it to the handbook.
We don't want to deter people's participation, and you might be we might have a citizen on a board that wants to recommend a friend to be on it, and then all of a sudden they think they can't, they can't continue friendship. So, we don't want it to be a deterrent that, you can no longer have contact with this person because you sit on the same board. Just maybe some clarification then. And do you think it needs to be explained that it also applies to emails? It's not just meeting in person.
So, Madam Mayor, the Colorado Open Meetings Law defines public meeting broadly, and if you have 3 or more board members or commission members on an email chain, that would also constitute a public meeting under the law. So we could parrot the law in the handbook. That is an amendment that we could create, or another alternative for the council would be just the pre-existing nature of the open meetings law, which is also generally applicable to our boards and commissions.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think Councilor Fogel, your light was back on first.
I think one thing that This came up one time in the planning, and not the planning commission, in the construction advisory board, in that you're dealing with 9 or 10 people that are all contractors. And when somebody new comes on the board, taking the time of the entire board to train them on what is going on that board and what is up and coming on that board is a waste of time. And they've said so. So the most ludicrous, interpretation of this rule would be that member A couldn't take member B out for a beer, as Councilor McFall suggested, and explain to them how things work. It would be against the rules, and technically is right now. Thankfully, it hasn't come up and nobody's said anything about it, because I'm sure those little mini training sessions have occurred for years. So again, I stick to my guns saying that this needs to say 3 or more, because holding our boards and commissioners to standards that don't apply to state law and that we don't do ourselves is ridiculous.
All right. We have not heard from Counselor Overcash.
Is that a motion, Counselor Fogle? In which case I'd seconded it.
We don't have a motion on the table at this
I'm
point.
asking if he is making.
Yeah, well, as I told you, Madam Mayor, I do want to make that motion, but I need to include some of Steve's stuff. So can Vince roll this up in a ball for us?
I'm going to make a suggestion that maybe we have staff bring this back, that this is not urgent. You've heard, it's almost like we've had a discussion and asked staff to come back with it after you've digested and, considered that. So we would be tabling it, I guess. What term am I looking for here? But we're not done discussing, so I don't want to do that yet.
Yeah, just, no, go ahead.
Counselor Olson?
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. And I really wanted council to have an opportunity to weigh in, because I think it's important that we set rules that are workable and cover the whole things. I just want to briefly respond to Councilor Sampson's statement.
We're not going back and forth.
I understand, but as far as the alternate council liaison having the rights, that was a decision by a city attorney that said it can't happen. I could not vote. So that's why I feel it's important that it be in the manual. So that's that one. Also, as I mentioned, people have freedom of speech, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean that they can then be a representative on a board and commission if they're going to be derogatory and insulting. Currently in the handbook on page 6, it says, each member is representing the City of Loveland when serving as a board or as a member, and should at all times be respectful and avoid inappropriate behavior. That's an administrative regulation, AR 37. Well, this just expands on that a little bit, and I think it just brings good decorum. So the things that I've covered in here, I would like the staff to bring those back for consideration.
Thank you.
At least give council an opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you. Counselor McFall.
Well, and I just want to go back to something Councilmember Sampson has said as well, and I'm a staunch supporter of the Constitution, cut and dried, and especially the First Amendment itself. I'd be curious, Madam Mayor, if the city attorney could weigh in on the First Amendment aspect of that, if at all.
Okay. All right. Deputy City Attorney, First Amendment rights as they apply to a person serving on a board or commission, making derogatory remarks about staff or council members or each other.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Madam Mayor. My assessment, the use of social media in particular, if the statements are, quote unquote, derogatory or offensive, as an appointed board member or commission member, your First Amendment rights to speak on matters of public concern are at their highest, they're at their climax. Employees, for example, have some circumscribed First Amendment rights, particularly in the government context. I'd certainly point to the law enforcement context. However, a board or commission member restricting their speech could give rise to exposure for a First Amendment challenge. I think a rule that would create removal or some affirmative act by either this body or by the city itself to remove a person for the words that they state does generate a fair amount of risk because that person is not an employee of the city. Should they be an employee of the city? There are, like I said, there are some circumscribed First Amendment rights in that context. If it interferes with the operation, if it's not a matter of public concern, there's an entire rubric or case analysis on those examples. But as an appointed member or as an elected official, your First Amendment rights are really at their apex, even if those terms are derogatory. And I think I would advise that the council really kind of tread lightly on that area. And if we have further discussions, I'd have to do a little bit more research, but perhaps there is a way to narrowly tailor it. But my understanding of the First Amendment is we'd have an unfavorable outcome if we chose to regulate First Amendment conduct in this way.
Thank you.
May I respond?
Hold on, no, we're going
Or a
to
question?
stay in order. Councilor McFall, did that address? All right, so I see City Manager, your light is on by accident? Okay, so Councilor Sampson and then Councilor Olson.
Yeah, it is.
Wait, Councilor Sampson had her lights on first.
Thank you,
Think so.
Madam Chair. I just wanted to verify, but I guess really just remind, which was a piece that was said earlier in all the statements that Councilor Olson had made, was that our board and commission members do serve at the pleasure of the council. And we did have a discrepancy for our new members this past year where there were members of council who wanted to have somebody removed from a board because they didn't agree with the things that they had said. And democracy prevailed, right? We voted on it, we had conversation, we handled it, because was it the pleasure of the council to have that person on or not? It was decided by the majority that they wanted to keep the person, that person was serving at our pleasure. That's how we handle those situations. I don't know. I wasn't on the board. I don't think on council when those statements were made. And if I was, I don't remember there being I may have been actually, because I think it was during BLM. So I was, but I don't remember there being even a motion to have the person removed or any formal action taken for that in particular. But we can do that. That is within our purview. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that that is our way of restricting, in a sense, and regulating.
Thank you, Councilor Olson.
Yeah, as a kind of an option for the city attorney, my first part of my statement is a statement that boards and members of boards and commissions are to be respectful of council and staff while serving on a board and commission. Disrespectful or derogatory comments in public forum are not consistent with membership on a board and commission, period. So it just expands what's currently there a little bit, and it doesn't address the First Amendment aspect of it. So I throw that out for your consideration.
Okay. So let me ask our deputy city attorney, and Hannah, did you get enough feedback from council that you'd be able to go back and kind of rework this if we postpone to a date certain or a date uncertain?
I believe we have Mayor Marsh. I will work with the city attorney's office to collect all those updates. I do just want clarification. Council is in agreement or in consensus with all of the discussed changes.
The ones that we didn't.
The ones that you've discussed.
Okay.
Like
The ones that you presented or the ones that are being suggested?
The ones that you've suggested as a body.
You may have to come back with option A, B, C, or D and have different ones addressed because I don't think we have consensus on everything that was discussed.
Perfect. We will do that.
Is that
Yeah.
okay? Your light is on. All right. If I could have city manager, would you want to postpone to a date certain or a date uncertain?
Madam Mayor, if I can, I'd like to have the
Okay. Deputy
acting city attorney tell us what.
Acting. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Acting city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council getting the work out this
Yeah.
afternoon. My understanding of Robert's rules, a motion to postpone the consideration of something would be appropriate in this instance. So if there was a council member who chose to move to postpone this matter until a date certain, and we could always, we could come back and amend it as necessary. But I don't know, I guess I would defer to Steve on the timing of when we would come back, but that would be the form of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could respectfully request that council consider postponing this item until such date that the city manager determines the information that the council has requested can now be included in an item.
All right, can I have a motion, please?
I make that motion?
A second.
Who was the second? All right, Counselor Foley was the second. Counselor Olson was the main motion mover. All right, any discussion by council on the motion to postpone? Seeing none, roll call. I have to look over there now.
Yeah.
Roll call, please. Yeah.
Olson,
Yes.
Ball. Yes. Foley,
Yes.
Sampson,
Yes.
Overcash,
Yes.
Fogel,
Yes.
McFall,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes,
Mallow.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, the vote was 9-0.
thank you. The motion passes. Moving on to our next item on our agenda, 3.2 from the Loveland Police Department. Our presenter will be Chief Robert Heiser. Ordinance enacting a supplemental budget and